After Soapy was killed, the gang fled. But during the early times in Skagway, that bottleneck that so much profited the gangmen and the town of Skagway now kept the gang from escaping Skagway. And the only place they could go was up in the hills. And 4 or 5 of them did try to escape in the hills, but these are not rough and tumble men. These are citified con men. They couldn't last in the wilderness. It was one night that they lasted up there, and they came back to town and surrendered. Frank H. Reid had the largest funeral that Skagway had ever seen at the time. There were a lot of people there, and no one dared miss that funeral. Soapy, on the other hand, people were scared of the vigilante committee, and they did not dare admit being a friend or even sorry that Soapy had died. So there were only 3 people that attended his funeral. The wagon driver who drove the wagon up to the cemetery, Reverend Sinclair, and a mysterious woman, and that's how she was described in the newspaper. A lot of people assumed that that was a lover of Soapy's or a madam, but at the time, after Soapy's death, when they were rounding up the gang, all you had to do was point at somebody, and the vigilantes pounced on that people. There are numerous newspaper articles where they apologize. The vigilantes would apologize to people, innocent people that they had roughed up. So now here's a supposed madam or a lover of Soapy's, and yet she's not kicked out of town. My personal belief is that she was probably an unknown friend, even a relative of Reverend Sinclair, who was also there giving the eulogy. And it makes sense. I'm not saying that Soapy didn't have, side women or whatever. It was like Old West Al Capone. He was very powerful, and I'm sure he would have lovers on the side maybe. But anyway, there's no proof of the mysterious woman actually having been connected to Soapy. Reverend Sinclair gave the eulogy, and in that eulogy he mentioned that Soapy liked Proverbs 13:15. The way of the transgressor is hard. But Sinclair also said that Soapy added to that proverb. And what Soapy said was, the way of the transgressor is hard, to quit. Soapy was buried 6 feet outside of the cemetery grounds. They did not want his memory to desecrate the cemetery grounds. According to the vigilantes in the newspapers, Soapy died with approximately $150 to his name. Now, this is a con man who was working every single day. He alone made a fortune, but he also had who knows how many gangsters working with him. Any other confidence men that came to Skagway had to pay for the privilege of operating in Skagway or along the trails. His wife, his widow, Mary, my great-grandmother, claimed to her grandchildren, one of them being my father, that Soapy was worth $40 million at the time of his death. Now that's about $1.3 billion today. And I'd love to know where that money went. I keep asking, where's the money? It's my inheritance. But, so where did the money go? Have you ever heard the saying, honor among thieves? Now, Soapy had very loyal friends. 15 years after Soapy's death, there were gang members that were interviewed, and they would not talk ill of their old friend and boss. And that's loyalty. He also had loyal businessmen. And there were some in Seattle, Spokane, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And Soapy, it is believed that he sent that money down to them. One reason being there were not enough safes in Skagway to hold all that gold and cash. So, and that was fine. Soapy would have received that money back had he survived. But he died, and there were no records, no receipts. So after he died, it was a matter of what gold? It was gone. But his wife didn't suffer. He was sending her money on a monthly basis, $1,000 to $1,500 a month at least. She lived for the rest of her life on that money, and very comfortably. Ironically, she married a cop. I love that. I mean, what a leap from a bad man to a good guy. Charity was a big part of Soapy. He gave a lot of money to the poor, and there are recorded incidences of this. It's a part of the con man up front. They call it Bill's luck. And in order to keep their good luck, they would give away money to people in need. Now, that was the above board charity, but there was a lot of charity that Soapy gave underneath the table in back alleyways to people on the street that did not even know him. And those are all recorded, a lot of them years later after Soapy's death. But he did, for instance, on Thanksgiving and Christmas, he was well known to the newspaper men in Denver for giving away turkey dinners, chicken meals to the poor. And Parson Uzel in Denver was a big one. He claimed that Soapy gave him well over $1,000 a month because Parson Uzel was a non-denominational church, and he felt that the money would actually go to the people. And it did. My personal opinion on Soapy is that he was multi-sided. He had the bad guy that a lot of his victims saw. He had the good guy that a lot of his friends saw. He had the charitable side that a lot of poor saw. One story is a woman is walking down the street and she was going to a soup kitchen. She didn't get there in time, and she was just standing in the street wondering how she was going to feed her children that night. And Soapy happened to be walking along, realized that she was too late for the soap kitchen, and he just gave her money and said, that should hold you for a while. There is no record of how much he gave her, but obviously it was more than just enough for one meal. I think if I had one question that I would want to ask Soapy, where's the money? Where's that gold? Seriously though, I think the question would be, how did he actually do the prize package soap sell racket?